AIM-listed Ascent Resources is focused on Slovenia and Central Europe. It has a 75% holding on the Petišovci tight gas project in Slovenia, where it's working on field development at the same time as selling gas into the Croatian network through INA. The field is on the Croatian-Hungarian border, which opens up all sorts of potential new opportunities as well. Colin Hutchinson is Chief Executive and he joins us now. Colin, welcome.
Thanks, Jeremy.
It's good to talk to you again because I want to find out a little bit more about some of the news flow we've seen recently. We've seen shares up 20%, I know, in the last couple of weeks or so on some good news. But where are we exactly? I've outlined briefly what it is you're doing in terms of some of the major activity, but some of this recent news flow takes us up to date. What's going on? Yeah, so
we've had a fair bit of news flow so far this year. At the beginning of 2019, we refreshed the board and brought in 2 new directors, particularly a new CEO, John Bugenhagen, who's a very experienced geophysicist. We've raised money in the period, raised about 1.1 million, and we've got a permit, a very important permit, the IPPC permit, which will enable us to ultimately sell the Slovenian gas into the Slovenian grid, and it's very important for the future development of the field.
How far into the Slovenian asset are you in terms of the potential? Because you're already, as I said, getting this field going, you're developing it at the same time as selling gas. What is the potential there?
Well, we're really at a very early stage in Slovenia. We've got the first 2 wells into production, and we've been producing gas for the last, since November 17, we've been selling gas into Croatia. We'd like to increase that significantly. We'd like to start going into some of the other old wells in the field, bringing them into production and ultimately drilling new wells. So it's really just we're at a very early stage in Slovenia.
What's the net present value then for that asset on the books at the moment?
Our net present value sort of on a discounted cash flow valuation could be somewhere in the region of £200 million. At present our market cap's around 10 million.
Yeah, so what is it that investors either don't understand, or the message perhaps maybe you're not possibly getting across, bearing in mind where you're going to go with this field?
I think the difficulty for a long time in Slovenia has been permitting, and that's really what's held the company back. We know that we've got the gas in the ground, we've got a way to sell the gas. It's really just increasing production has been the issue, and that requires environmental permits. That's why it was so pleasing a few weeks ago to say that we'd got the first permit, the IPPC permit, through, and that we hope that the next permit to re-stimulate the wells will also come through in the not too distant future.
What is it that's likely to bring that about? I mean, is it just a rubber stamping, and is it just a question of the admin grinding almost to a halt because it's difficult to get it through, or is it because there are some real objections?
Well, we've had some objections. We think those objections aren't well founded, mainly based on environmental reasons and based on a misunderstanding of what we're doing, because what we're doing in Slovenia has been done in the country since 1956. We're not fracking, we're not bringing in an American shale project, we're just continuing what's been going on for since 1956 and been done over 50 times in Slovenia. So there's misunderstandings there, and we hope that once people understand exactly what we're doing, and it's really a continuation of the development that started a long time ago, that then the permits get awarded and we can continue to develop the field, because it's very important. It's very important for Slovenia economically to generate its own gas supply, generate tax revenue and create jobs. It's important environmentally because at the minute they're relying on more polluting forms of energy, and I think natural gas would be a much more sensible source of energy for the future. And strategically, the country's importing 99.9% of its natural gas requirement from a lot of other countries. It would be much better if it could generate a significant proportion of its own demand, of its own supply.
Going back to the news recently, you've got this 6-month extension to a gas sales deal, haven't you, going into Croatia?
Yeah.
How is that likely to develop from here? I mean, 6 months doesn't sound a very long period of time when you're looking at a long-term project like this.
No, the reason we've done a 6-month extension is this is the second time we've extended it. So we signed a year-long agreement which kicked off in November 17. We extended it for 6 months, and now we've extended it for another 6 months to bring it to the 2-year anniversary. So the intention is that we're going to agree another gas sales agreement with INA that will kick off when this one expires in November this year, and that will hopefully take into account the anticipated increase in volumes that we'd like to see, because we're in the process of installing or acquiring a compressor to put on the field, which will bring up production, and hopefully as well we get some of these permits through, which allows us to re-stimulate the wells. So hopefully the next agreement, we will sign another gas sales agreement with ENA, but hopefully this next agreement has increased production volumes in it.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk as well about the money you've raised. You mentioned at the top you've raised just over $1 million this year, 750,000 coming most recently with this most recent rise in shares. Let's just bring up the share price so we can see the daily chart here. Let's take it back to the beginning of 2018. And this is the area here where we saw this good news. Coming into that, of course, you've got this placing where you raised £750,000. What is it you're going to be doing with the money, this most recent raise?
The main things we're doing with the money is we're getting this compressor equipment acquired and installed, and that is important to increase short-term production and maximise the productivity and the lifespan of the existing wells. We're also reprocessing the 3D seismic, so we've got an extensive 3D over the field, and we're having that reprocessed at the minute to look at any accumulations in the shallower zones which haven't been tapped. So there's been oil production from the shallow reservoirs since the 1940s. So we're looking to see whether there's any potential to go into the old oil wells or to drill a new oil well, which would increase production there, or gas. And we're also going to look at the very deep prospects below sort of 3,500 metres, where we've already done a lot of analysis to see whether there's any potential in the deeper Triassic rocks. So those are the two main things that we're going to use the cash for.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well your new member on the board, the new chief operating officer. That is, he's steeped in the understanding, isn't he, of the geology of the area? He
is. It's been very important to get John on board. He's an experienced geophysicist. He's also very experienced in the region. Worked for Aspect in Hungary, and he's worked for San Leon across Eastern Europe. So it was great to get him on board. He's been leading this whole the compressor project and reanalysing the seismic, and I'm hoping that we'll get some nice results from that.
Yeah, what's he looking at in terms of some other opportunities as well? Because I know that you do have your sites further afield, don't you, from the assets you've already got on the books?
We do, because we've got Slovenia, but I think it's important that we grow outside of Slovenia as well. We still think Slovenia is a great asset and want to maximise that, but I think it's sensible to look at other projects in other parts of the region. Croatia has a bid round which is active at the minute, and we've been looking at a number of blocks there where we're interested in putting in a bid. The bid date is at the end of June, and we're also looking at some other projects in the region. I think there's a lot of other jurisdictions in Central Europe like Hungary, Romania, Poland, which could be attractive.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pull it all together and work out where you're going this year, what it is you're doing from here until the end of the year, let's say, to get us an idea that things are continuing on track.
So in Slovenia, with what we've got at the minute, we'll put the compressor in and get a bit more production out of PG10 and PG11A. We'll reanalyse the seismic and see whether there's anything shallow or anything deep. Hopefully we'll also get the permit through, which would allow us to go back in and re-stimulate 10 and 11 to boost production further. And then in the region, we'll be looking at the Croatian bid round and maybe looking at other projects in the region.
And how much of that work are you funded for?
Well, the money's important because it funds this initial piece of the compressor, the 3D seismic reprocessing, and allows us to take forward the Croatian bid round. So the 750 short funds us for that initial piece of development until we see some progress.
Well, look, we look forward to progress and do come back and update us. But
thanks very much.
Meantime, Colin, thanks indeed for joining us. Colin Hutchinson is Chief Executive of Ascent Resources.